The last balloon drooped above the living room archway, its pink ribbon curling like a question mark. Paper plates sat untouched on the table, glitter confetti dull under the soft hum of the ceiling fan. I'd thrown a birthday party that was supposed to fill this house with laughter. It was for my daughter, Lila, 11 years old that morning, dressed in a lilac dress that made her eyes shimmer like the frosting on her cake. She'd made handmade invitations for everyone, my parents, my brother Ethan, Aunt Laura, even the cousins who always had something better to do. No one came. Not one person. At first, I told her they must have been caught in traffic, that maybe Grandma's GPS got confused again. But when the sun dipped and the candles burned low, her tiny shoulders sagged. I watched her blow out the candles in silence, her voice barely a whisper. Maybe they forgot. I smiled, even though my throat ached. People forget parties, sweetheart. But they never forget the people they love. When she finally fell asleep on the couch, cheeks sticky with frosting and tears, I sat alone among the streamers, staring at my phone. No calls. No messages. Just the ghost of the family I once tried so hard to please. That night, I told myself it was the last time I'd wait for anyone to show up for me, or for her. A week later, the universe decided to test that promise. There was a time when my parents' house felt like the center of my world. Big white porch, wind chimes, the smell of my mom's cinnamon coffee drifting through the kitchen every Sunday morning. I used to think love lived there, steady, familiar, unshakable. Until I found out it only lived there when I fit their version of good enough. I was 22 when I told them I was pregnant. I can still remember the way my father's fork froze midair, how my mom's smile disappeared like someone turned off a light. "You're not married, Haley," she whispered, her voice shaking like it was her life I'd ruined. And my dad, he didn't yell. He just said, "You've made your bed, now lie in it." They didn't kick me out that night, but they stopped looking at me the same way. Every dinner turned into a quiet war, judgment served alongside mashed potatoes. By the time I moved out a few months later, my brother Ethan had already stopped calling. The last words my mother said as I packed my car were, "You always had to do things the hard way." I left with 2 suitcases, a beat-up Honda, and a baby growing inside me. That night, I stayed in a cheap motel off Highway 81. The wallpaper was peeling, the air smelled like old coffee, and I cried harder than I ever had. Then I found it, a small velvet pouch my late grandma may have given me on my 18th birthday. Inside was her silver charm bracelet. She'd said, "Whenever life feels small, wear this and remember, you come from women who survive." I slid that bracelet onto my wrist right there, whispering, "Guess it's my turn now." When Lila was born, I sent photos to my family. No one replied. No flowers. No visit. Just silence, the kind that hums louder than noise. That silence became my teacher. It taught me to stop begging for love that had conditions. It taught me to build a life where my daughter's laughter didn't have to compete with anyone's approval. I promised myself, one day, they'd see me again. Not the mistake they walked away from, but the woman they should have believed in. And when that day came, I'd be ready. Starting over wasn't cinematic. It was messy. Lonely. Most nights, it looked like me standing over the kitchen sink at midnight, one hand rocking a crying baby, the other typing job applications on my phone. I worked as a receptionist at a dental clinic during the day and cleaned offices after hours. I slept in 2-hour fragments, sometimes in the driver's seat of my car when the sitter canceled. But every morning, I'd whisper to Lila, "We're gonna be okay, baby. Maybe not today, but soon." Soon turned into years. And somewhere between exhaustion and survival, I learned something. I had a gift. It started with a favor for a friend, making handmade party decorations for her kid's birthday. She posted pictures online. Within days, strangers started asking who designed the setup. I didn't even have a business name, just a kitchen table and a hot glue gun. I called it Lila and Company, because if I was going to build something from nothing, I wanted her name on it. For the first 2 years, it was chaos. I took every order, baby showers, weddings, even corporate events. I'd stay up till dawn painting wooden signs, stringing fairy lights, and cutting banners with trembling hands. Lila would sit beside me doing homework, sometimes falling asleep with glitter on her hair. But then came my first big break. A local bakery owner asked me to decorate her grand opening. I poured every ounce of my heart into that event. By the next morning, photos of my work were trending on Instagram. Within months, I was booking back-to-back events. Soon I had a small studio downtown, pastel walls, shelves stacked with ribbons, balloons, and candles. The air smelled like hope and vanilla. And yet, through it all, I kept my success quiet. I posted simple photos, never showed my face, never bragged. If my family ever checked my social media, they'd probably think I was still scraping by. Maybe part of me didn't want them to see me until I was undeniably whole. I met Maggie, the owner of a nearby flower shop, around that time. She was in her late 40s, sharp-tongued but soft-hearted. She took one look at me one afternoon, covered in confetti and coffee stains, and said, "Sweetheart, you've got grit. Don't let anyone dim that." She became my anchor, offering advice, leftover flowers, and sometimes just a hug when I couldn't afford to cry in front of my daughter. When I finally opened my own event planning studio, Maggie brought the first bouquet. A simple note was tied around the stems. "You built this with your own 2 hands. Never apologize for shining." I framed that note on my office wall. It's still there today. By the time Lila turned 11, Lila and Company had become one of the most sought-after event companies in the city. We had clients waiting months in advance. We'd finally moved into a sunlit house with a white fence, the kind I once thought only belonged to people who had perfect families. And yet, as I sat planning her birthday party that year, invitations neatly addressed to every member of my family, I still hoped. Maybe this time, they'd show up. Maybe this time, love would be enough. I was wrong. A week after Lila's birthday, life had settled back into its quiet rhythm. Or at least, that's what I told myself. I'd packed away the decorations, donated the leftover snacks to the shelter, and convinced Lila that sometimes grown-ups forget things. But the truth was, I hadn't forgotten a thing. The silence still echoed. No calls. No texts. Not even a half-hearted "sorry we missed it." Then one Friday afternoon, I got an unexpected visitor. I was arranging a display of rose garlands in my studio when the bell over the door chimed. When I looked up, I froze. It was Ethan, my brother. Same confident stance, same pressed shirt, but something uncertain in his eyes. "Hey, Haley." It had been almost a decade since he'd said my name in person. "Wow," he murmured, glancing around the studio. "This place is something else." I didn't answer, just smiled politely. "What brings you here?" I finally asked, voice calm but steady. He rubbed the back of his neck. "Mom saw your business featured on Channel 5 last night. They did a segment on local entrepreneurs."
"Ah, so that's how."
He hesitated, looking almost embarrassed. "She didn't know you'd built all this. None of us did." I nodded, smoothing a ribbon on the counter. "That's because you never asked." There was silence, thick, uncomfortable, the kind filled with words neither of us wanted to say. Then the door opened again. My parents stepped in. My mother looked smaller somehow, her perfectly pressed blouse, her cautious eyes darting around the pastel-colored studio. My father's expression was hard to read, pride tangled with guilt. I didn't move, just let them look. Every wall told a story, framed photos of events I'd designed, newspaper clippings, awards. And right in the center, behind my desk, the silver bracelet hung in a glass frame with Grandma May's note. "You come from women who survive." My mother's hand flew to her mouth. You kept that?" "I did," I said softly. It reminded me that love doesn't disappear just because people do. My father cleared his throat. "You've done well for yourself, Haley." His voice carried something I hadn't heard in years, respect, maybe even remorse. "I had to," I replied. "You made sure I didn't have anyone else to rely on." He shifted uncomfortably. "We thought we were doing what was best. You were young and you decided I wasn't worth standing by," I interrupted, not unkindly but firmly. My mother's eyes glistened. "We were wrong. I see that now." Her voice cracked. We all saw that story about the party. We didn't realize no one came. I laughed softly, not bitterly, just tired. No one came. But it's okay. My daughter still smiled. We made our own joy. Ethan looked down. You should have called. I tilted my head. Why would I? You all stopped picking up years ago. No one spoke for a long moment. The only sound was the faint hum of the air conditioner and the ticking clock above the counter. Then I stood, walking toward the framed bracelet. You see this place? I gestured around the room. Every inch of it was built from nights you didn't see, tears you didn't ask about, and birthdays you forgot. And I'm proud of that. My father exhaled slowly. We'd like to fix things to feel at us. I met his gaze, steady, clear. That depends. He frowned. On what? On whether you're here because you care, I said, or because you're impressed. The words landed heavy, but I didn't fill the silence. I'd learned that silence can be power, too. Finally, my mother whispered, Can we come by? See Lila? I nodded slightly. You can try, but this time, you show up when you say you will. She nodded, tears spilling freely now. Ethan just looked away, jaw tight. As they left, I stood behind my counter, not angry, not triumphant, just free. They'd finally seen who I became without them. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I needed their approval. They came back the next weekend, right on time this time. It was strange, watching their car pull into my driveway after 11 years of absence. The same driveway they once said I'd never afford. Lila was sitting on the porch steps, her sketchbook on her knees. When she saw them, she looked at me nervously. It's okay, I told her. They're family, just different kind of family now. We sat in the living room, my living room, sunlight filtering through white curtains, the scent of fresh lavender candles filling the space. My mother kept glancing at the framed photos, Lila at dance recitals, me at events, smiling faces surrounded by colors and life. My father cleared his throat. You've done well, Haley. We didn't realize how much you'd accomplished. I poured coffee, calm and steady. That's because I stopped telling you when you stopped listening. No one argued. There was a time when that silence would have hurt. Now it just felt like air, light and breathable. Ethan spoke first. Mom wants to be part of Lila's life again. I nodded slowly. Then she needs to start by earning her trust. Kids remember who claps for them and who doesn't. My mother's chin trembled. I'll do whatever it takes. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I saw not the woman who judged me, but the one who once brushed my hair and told me bedtime stories. You start by showing up, I said softly. No more excuses. If you promise her a visit, you keep it. If you say you'll call, you call. She deserves reliability, not regret. My father shifted, uncomfortable. And what about us? I met his gaze. You apologized to her, not for missing her birthday, but for teaching her that love can be conditional. Then you make it unconditional. He nodded, eyes moist but pride still in his posture. I can do that. Ethan sat back, arms crossed. And me? I smiled faintly. You show her what a real uncle looks like. You take her to a ball game. You let her paint your face. You sit through her school recitals even when you're bored. You show her men can be kind. He laughed quietly, shaking his head. You've turned into mom? I raised a brow.
No.
I turned into the mom I needed. The room fell quiet again, but this time, it wasn't awkward. It felt healing. I took a breath. Listen, I don't hold grudges. But I don't hand out second chances for free either. If you want back in our lives, you rebuild it one honest moment at a time. No guilt, no manipulation, no pretending. My mother reached across the table and placed her hand over mine. You have every right to set the rules, Haley. We'll follow them. I squeezed her hand back. Good. Because this family, my family, runs on love, not fear. Lila peeked into the room then, holding her sketchbook shyly. My mother smiled at her, hesitantly. That's beautiful, sweetheart. What are you drawing? Lila held it up. A house. 3 people standing outside it holding balloons. Above it, she'd written, "Home is where people show up." And for the first time in years, I let myself believe maybe they could learn to. 3 months later, our house looked different, not because I'd redecorated, but because it felt lighter. There were more shoes by the door, more laughter spilling down the hallway. My mother came by every Sunday with blueberry muffins, sometimes too many, sometimes burnt, but always warm. My father finally fixed the squeaky porch step I'd stopped noticing years ago. And Ethan? He'd become Lila's favorite person. He never missed a dance recital, no matter how awkwardly he clapped off beat. Healing didn't happen overnight. There were awkward pauses, old habits creeping in, moments where the past still tried to speak louder than the present. But every time it did, I'd touch the silver bracelet on my wrist, Grandma May's words etched faintly in my mind. "You come from women who survive." Some evenings, I'd sit on the porch swing after Lila went to bed, the bracelet cool against my skin, and think about the night no one showed up. That pain had once felt unbearable, but now I understood it was necessary. It had stripped away everything false and left me with the truth. We don't need people to show up to prove we matter. We just need to show up for ourselves first. One evening, Lila curled beside me, holding a small gift bag. Inside was a charm she'd made herself, a tiny heart shaped from pink clay. "It's for your bracelet," she said softly. "For the night we had our own party." My throat tightened. "What does it mean?"
She grinned.
"It means we're the kind of family that keeps showing up, even when nobody else does." I hugged her, the kind of hug that says everything words can't. And as the sky burned orange and gold, I realized something. Forgiveness doesn't always mean letting people back in. Sometimes it's just letting the pain go so it stops holding space inside you. That night, I wrote a post, simple, quiet, honest. A year ago, I threw a birthday party and no one came. Today, my daughter threw one for me, and we ran out of chairs. Sometimes, life doesn't give you the family you hoped for, so you build the one you deserve. It wasn't meant to go viral, but it did. Because maybe people saw themselves in it, the waiting, the hurt, the rebuilding. And when I finally recorded the voiceover for the video, my last line came out steady and clear, carrying every scar and every triumph. A week later, they saw what I'd built without them. But by then, I'd already learned the only people who need to come to your party are the ones who never left.